Good morning. Thank you so much for staying tuned to Daybreak on this 14th day of November 2022. It's now just about 26 minutes to 7 o'clock, and it's good time to start the conversation. Just to introduce them again, John Ongeri, Member of Parliament for Dagoretti South. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam, and it's good to be here.
It's good to see you here. David Kosing is the Member of Parliament for Pokot South. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
And Nelson Koech is the Member of Parliament for Belgut and also the Chairperson of Defense and Foreign Relations.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Chairs or...
You've forgotten my...
All of them, actually.
PIC.
Oh, PIC, Chair PIC.
Yes, commercial.
Congratulations as well.
Commercial and energy.
Oh, commercial and energy. Interesting. I didn't know that.
The most important one. There are so many PICs.
It's a great honor, actually.
Yeah.
All the panelists today happen to be chairing committees. I've had the honor to chair a committee that I sat in the 12th Parliament.
Yeah.
The Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation.
Ah,
yes.
So we are under your...
Yes.
Have you, yes.
Okay, interesting. It's good to have all chairs. Stephen Mule will be joining us shortly. He's the Member of Parliament for Matungulu constituency, but also one of the sponsors of a bill that is seeking to amend the Constitution to entrench the NGCDF and other funds into the supreme law. We'll have that conversation shortly from now. But on the front pages of the two dailies, on the front page of this Daily Nation, you'll see man on a mission, Ruto's 126 meetings in 60 days. Of course, detailing some of those areas that he has visited within the country, but also outside the country, the US, the UK, Egypt, Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania. Several meetings in the country for several conversations. The Nation is reporting that it appears that it is only on 5 days that he was not engaged, at least for those meetings that were made public. So it looks like a busy 63 days he has had, because today it's 63 days since he became president. Then you see another story there. PS nominees line up for vetting by MPs starting today. Then on the front page of the Standard, how Ruto's budget cuts will affect you. Talking about that call that he announced to Parliament on the 29th of September, that the National Treasury had been directed to look for 300 billion shillings that will be cut from the current financial year budget. The Standard is looking at some of those areas that will be affected. And then again, that main story of vetting of PSs begins as government takes shape. And I think we can begin there, because I have all chairpersons here. At least your committee will be vetting someone.
Yep.
Defense and Foreign Relations, as well as the committee of John Ongeri. I mean, what are you looking for? Because there has been a bit of reactions, and I'm sure you've heard of this, from a list of, is it 51? You have 40 men, 11 women. Then you have a list of several ex-politicians, or people who were actually running in the last election. Now they are going to become heads of departments in the capacity of principal secretary. What will you be looking for, and how are you using that information and concerns?
Thank you, Sam. I think, first of all, let me say I did participate also in the selection committee, which was tasked with vetting of cabinet secretaries. Appointments committee.
Right.
Which was involved in vetting of the cabinet secretaries. My committee will be vetting 4 cabinet secretaries.
Yes.
And permanent secretaries, sorry. What is happening this morning? Permanent secretaries. And there are so many things that we look at. First of all, the suitability. There are boxes that we have to tick. The suitability, academic qualification, integrity. You talked about gender. You see that is now collective. That is for the whole house. But you know, when they come before a committee, it's not in your purview to know if it has met the threshold of gender. That one will be dealt with on the floor of the house. But we'll check so many other things, and particularly the permanent secretaries, who are going to be the people responsible with running of the different ministries. It is important that they are aware of what they are going to do in their ministries. We'll also look at their experience from where they worked before. So there are so many things that you look at before we agree. Then you come up with the collective wisdom of the committee and decide their suitability or otherwise to serve in those ministries that have been designed. designated.
So you've said something interesting about the integrity. And I remember having a conversation about the cabinet secretary nominees. And the overriding theme was that innocent till proven guilty. Actually, there's some CSs that are now in office. So really, what do you do with that information? If people write to you and tell you that we doubt the integrity of this person because of these cases, what do you do with that information?
These committees are not adversarial. There are also people who throw all level of allegations. You must realize that these committees also are not court of law. So we look at them at the level of the clerk, and we decide if this can be admitted or not. And some of those allegations, if cannot be proven, then you just dismiss them. But at that point, I think our focus really is to see if the person who's been picked can deliver on the ministries they've been picked to serve. And that is basically what we'll be doing in the next few days.
What is your concern, David Kosing? Because yes, the third round of vetting PSS, but I don't, yes, they were vetted also in 2017. What didn't happen, 2018, what didn't happen is the active recruitment by the Public Service Commission. But what are your concerns as you go into this, based on the lessons that you learned from the vetting of CSS?
Thank you, Sam. And again, let me join my colleague, Belkut One, by saying I was also in the appointments committee. So both of us were vetting the CSS. Let me say this, Sam. This is just a conveyor belt. I'm telling you, nothing going to happen. And for you to, I don't think if we have proper separation of power at the moment in Parliament. So you're expecting nobody will be rejected. I'll tell you that. Nobody. And that's it. You see? Why? Because the MPs are not muscleus enough, or don't have enough muscle. Although the criteria has been put, you know, to say, look at the integrity, you know, look at that, look at that. But there's a lot of patronage. And say, look, you know what, for us, this government, you know, it has been said like this, so we pass it. The only success, and I think we need to change the constitution, right? In my view, going forward, so that this thing has a meaning. Because why would you tell people you are vetting, and there's no change? The people of Kenya are looking at Parliament and say, look, we're expecting you to vet. And when vetting is there, Sam, people expect that out of all the 51, not all 51 are good. Yeah. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3, for purposes of certain reasons, can be rejected. Not even rejected, you know. Parliament will say, give the president an opportunity to bring more. Like what happened in our committee of appointment. We proposed that let us have one person to be brought by the president again in terms of performance, right? And what happened in the National Assembly? They overturned our report. We even had 2, we raised issues of 2 in terms of integrity. What happened in the National Assembly? They also overturned our report. So I think there's a problem. The only success I would say now in that proposal is that it has made presidents, whoever becomes the president, to do more work before they appoint somebody or nominate. That is the only success. That this is like, you know, like, okay, well, fine, let me do my work. Because, you know, when they go to the National Assembly, the moment you ask them questions, the moment you interrogate the integrity, you are actually interrogating the decision of the appointing authority. So it has made presidents actually to be a bit cautious before they appoint anybody. They will have to go look at background a little bit, background check. That's the only success we can say this constitution has done. So that the next president, rather than just appointing anybody, they will first of all do their own vetting. You don't say, hey, look, if they go to Parliament, maybe they will do this and this and this, and maybe now they will bring some people who are not extremely bad, right? So maybe that's the only success, but for now, it's conveyor belt.
But Honorable Kosing, I'll come to you, Honorable John Kerry. But what is this that happened? Because your committee that you sat in with the Honorable Koech here, you unanimously agreed that Penina Malonza should not be in cabinet. So what happened between that decision and the time that the plenary was taking a vote?
You know, what happened is, of course, our colleagues in Kenya Kwanza, of course, you know, that is nomination by the president and appointment by the president. So the moment you reject that person, we look like that you're actually rejecting the president himself or the president's decision. So that did not work very well with the other side. And it happened on the, Sam, it happened in 11th Parliament. For us in Jubilee, you know. So the committee went, rejected one nominee, right? I don't want to say her name, but of course
is it
it's known.
That she was also nominated to tourism?
Yes, again. And you know, they rejected. What happened is that we were lobbied as Jubilee. I said, look, you know what, this is our candidate. So let us just, you know, come up and help her. It happened the same thing to Malonza. So Sam, that is a political process. We must appreciate. The reason why these things are done politically are for those results, right? So that they can lobby, they can do that. So you cannot say that that was a wrong process, that people saved.
What does that mean?
You know, what is parliament? Parliament is about numbers and lobbying, right? You can make a certain correction and say, look, you know what, maybe as somebody said, maybe she wasn't, you know, maybe she woke up like what, or she was on these things, which I don't want to say, what Chief Whip said, and so on. So if you look at that, Sam, in my view, you know, this is a political process. And we will.
What does that lobbying entail?
Lobbying entails, of course, you know, arguing and saying, look, you know, for us in Kenya Kwanza, we cannot allow that candidate, for example, to fail, because that will look like we are failing as Kenya Kwanza. And therefore, that will also will elicit some emotion. Say, look, you know what, let us protect our own, whatever the circumstances can be. And because they have the numbers, they have to protect. And that is a political process, Sam. And that will teach you, you must have numbers to be able to deliver an agenda.
Okay. I hear you. Honorable John Kerry, so yes, as you go into this round of principal secretaries, are you concerned that maybe for the first time we have principal secretaries not coming from the civil service, but coming from the political world, some of them?
Very good question, Sam, because it begins to answer the very first question you asked, like what does vetting entail? And it's a bit tragic to hear some of the words that are coming from Chairman Kosing, in total disregard of the Constitution of Kenya, in total disregard of the standing orders of the House, because the vetting process is an extremely robust process that has been detailed and provided for by the Constitution and the standing orders of this country as a very important process. Very important to the sense that it gives an opportunity for not only the committee and Parliament to certify itself with a nominee of a president, but it's also a moment where the public in general gets an opportunity to have a window into what kind of government the head of state is forming. How so? The vetting process is not only limited to members of Parliament alone. As members of Parliament are vetting, the Parliament also invites the public to be a part of this process. As we are speaking now, Parliament is collecting memoranda upon memoranda on the suitability or otherwise of the candidates that are presented to them. Now, to individuals who expect that a vetting process should be an argument or it should be a place where blood should flow or where we should go for people's jugular and annihilate and chop off people's heads, it becomes a disappointment. But that is not what a vetting process is. A vetting process is just for us to be able to certify ourselves as Parliament and also demonstrate the same to the public that this is a person who is, one, suitable for office. Secondly, fit for purpose for a specific office and fit for purpose at a specific time. For example, Kenya Kwanza government has its manifesto. So whoever comes before us has to prove to us that they are fit for purpose to deliver on the Kenya Kwanza mandate. We also take this time to engage this person on very sector-specific matters. For example, if you are appointed to office, to a state department in charge of broadcasting, we will need to satisfy ourselves that you are fit for sector-specific work. We also will take time to look for personal industry, personal initiative, but also give a good background. But if you look at places where vetting has become useful, in houses of Congress, for example, or in the Senate in the US, you realize that it is not expected to be a bloodbath. It is actually very sector specific. Is this person suitable for office? So the one thing that I would want to agree with Chairman Kosin is that this vetting makes the appointing authorities a bit more careful when they're presenting nominees to the extent that if they do their due diligence, if they do their background work well, then of course the work becomes easier for Parliament, and then we don't see a lot of attrition. We don't see a lot of annihilation of individuals at vetting, because the primary work has already been done by the appointing authority.
And I'll get back to you, because let's just go into it, because you say that you want to satisfy yourselves that this person is fit for a particular office, and that is more direct to the committee that is doing that work. Yet you have a committee on appointments that assessed a cabinet secretary nominee and decided, based on our assessment, she's not fit to be. But the plenary of members that didn't sit in that committee come and overturn. And I know it's within their right, but then does it really, in your assessment, serve purpose if your work can actually be overturned?
Well, as much as the Honorable Koech says that we are not a court of law, there are also some thresholds that have to be met. For example, if a report appears before the floor and to the wisdom of the plenary, the report is not up to par, it is in the place of the entire plenary to reverse a report. But then also some, come to think of it, what if it was strategic for Kenya Kwanza to allow the likes of Honorable Kosin to enjoy a moment of glory at the committee, so that when we get to the floor of the House, then we have the opportunity to showcase it to Kenyans what Parliament is able to do in terms of going into the inner details of why maybe they had a dissenting voice at committee stage. And when the arguments were made, when the arguments were made, when the arguments were made, because there was an opportunity for us to debate the matter, when the arguments were made, it was very clear that there could have been just one issue that could have caused such a not satisfactory performance at committee level. And when that was adjudicated, the Parliament was able to go up, to go over the stage fright and the panic that could have appeared at committee stage, and be able to interrogate the suitability of the candidate, and satisfied itself that this candidate is fit for purpose for the position that she was being appointed to.
Okay, all right, I hear you. And I want us to bring in Stephen Mule, who is from Matungulu constituency. He'll be joining the panel shortly. But as you do that, Honorable Kosing, you said something about lobbying. And I'm just wondering, because you had a minority report against some 2 nominees. But when it came to the moment of voting, the voices were quite low, the voices of dissent. What happened? Did the lobbying also affect you?
No, Sam. You know what happened? I think we are still in the learning process. This is the 3rd time we are waiting and approving people for different positions. The first one, 11 Parliament. Second, 12 Parliament, this 13th. What happened, which we want to do going forward, is we want to approve a candidate, a nominee by name, right? We don't call a blanket. We want to approve, and we want to change the law so that even if we do vetting and we present to the floor of the House, then we must approve a candidate by name. In this one, what happened was, because there was a minority report, the minority report did not separate, right? By law, was not able to separate the 2 names that were found to be questionable from the main report. So in the main report, they look like approved. Although there's a minority report, what would have happened is that maybe going forward, we will amend our standing orders and the law to say, if there's a minority report, then we allow Parliament to vote for those people differently.
I thought that's the same thing that happened in 20...
No. This will not happen this time.
Why?
How it was, the report was done, and that's what I'm saying. We need to put it in law explicitly that if there's a minority report of 2 people or 3 people, they should be voted and debated differently. So what happened is that we debated everybody together. There were so many good people, really. There were so many good people in that, and that's why my thinking that this constitution has succeeded to bring Parliament to the appointment of ministers is it has made the executive a bit more careful to bring these people. However, let me tell you this. Let me say this. Yeah. Very important. the 20-member committee, chaired by the Speaker, participated by 3 of us in this panel. Honorable, also Matungulu was also part of that vetting. We raised three names, or we put 3 names in question. Let me tell you, just watch what's going to happen in the next 5 years. If they don't change, it will come out. And the truth, Sam, is like pregnancy. It may not be shown today, but before 9 months, it will just come out.
Okay. Honorable Stephen Mule, good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we are concluding on this conversation about the vetting. And I remember you are part of that committee, but I don't know whether you voted with the minority or with the majority. Someone told me that you are not at the meeting that decided the fate of those nominees.
Thank you very much, Sam. Apologies. It's drizzling out there and a bit of jam. But I was part and parcel of that committee, and I had an engagement outside the country at the tail end. So I did a letter to the Speaker, whereby he allowed for me to travel to Korea for an engagement.
Okay, that's fine. So the question for you is, at a time that you have the committee that you sat in making a decision, by majority to reject a nominee and by minority to reject 2, but then you get to the floor of the House and the decision is a blanket one. I mean, what happened? Because from traditions, we had been seeing, at least in 2013, that the nominees were approved per person.
Sam, you need to remember that in 2013, I was part and parcel of the appointment committee and the previous election. And I want to give my own personal view is that we need to relook at the standing orders, and we also need to relook at the structure of how to do vetting. If you look at countries like the US, the UK, vetting is done per individual. And once vetting is done per individual, a report is done per individual. What we are struggling with in the country is that whereby we are lumping up all the nominees to one basket, and we want to pass them as one. So basically, we will be making suggestions for those who have been in the committee on how to better the process. You know very well, as a country, we are still in learning process. We are young Democrats. So basically, our democracy is still young, it's still growing. We need to change a lot of things. And I believe it's for the good of the country when we have the institutional history of what has happened for the last 15 years and better it off for the next administration to come to make sure that they get the best of the best on vetting.
But what are your thoughts, seeing some of your former colleagues on the political front working their way into principal secretary positions?
When you are a servant, you can serve in any position in this country. And I believe that if you are given an opportunity and you have what it takes, you don't look at the position or the ranking. Look at what you can serve for Kenyans, because that is the most important. We don't need to fit all of us into the cabinet. We don't need to fit all of us in the principal secretary positions or members of parliament. But every Kenyan has an opportunity to work and better this country for the future of the nation and for the future of generations to come.
And the question about, because people in the public service have been working for several years, they hope that they will rise up to that position. That's the peak of a career civil servant's career. Then you have people from the political front coming to take those positions. I mean, how do you reconcile that and still keep the morale within the public service?
I know it demoralizes the public service personnel somehow. But you know, at the end of the day, these are very few positions which, with the wisdom of the crafters of the Constitution, they have to generate from the presidency and the presidents of the day. But if we look keenly in the most developed democracy, the hierarchy of moving from one step to the other is very clear. And I think it's the high time we look at the Public Service Act of Kenya to make sure that at least that transition from job group, the lowest job group to the toppest, it enumerates on performance, competency, and also qualification. And I think quite a number of ministries embraced how they rank their members, their staff, or the civil servants to grow. Last parliament, I served in the foreign affairs, and I know foreign affairs as a criteria on how you walk the round all the way to become an ambassador, and how long you can be able to serve in a foreign mission and come back and just being deployed back to the ministry. And that gives fairness to the young people who are growing within the ministry to make sure that at least one day they know that they can be in that job position within the country or within the ministry. So it's a matter of time and a matter of looking at different regulations, different acts, and coming up with what is suitable for the current Kenya, not the past Kenya, and for the future Kenya.
But on that one, Sam, it's good to be objective.
Right.
We are not saying that 51 out of 51 PSs are coming out of corporate Kenya and being plonked at the top of a ministry. In fact, it is not the norm, it is the exception. And even granted that there are some few people who are showing up and coming to the top of the ministry, not having grown through the ministry, we've also got to remind ourselves that these are Kenyans. It's Kenyans who will be serving in Kenyan offices. But even looking out there, and it's good that the Honorable Mule mentioned the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, think of even very advanced democracies like the US. Today we have Balozi Meg. Meg was actually picked out of Silicon Valley. She was a Hewlett-Packard executive, and she was now picked out of corporate America and sent on a job to Africa as Balozi representing America in Kenya. So what I was saying is that it is not all the PSs who are coming out of corporate Kenya and being put on top of a ministry. There are few and there are exceptions, but even then, they are Kenyans, and there is nothing illegal about that. And in fact, as they say, the taste of the pudding is in tasting it. The proof of the pudding is in tasting it. Let them get the opportunity. Let them serve. Let them judge. Let Kenya judge them against the work that they shall do in the ministries that they've been appointed.
Including those from politics, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But what's the problem with politics?
I didn't say there's a problem. I'm just asking.
So
There are some who come from the political world,
Yeah.
and the fact that they doubled up in politics does not take away from them their Kenyanness, does not take away their suitability, does not take away their merit. So the fact that they had doubled up in politics doesn't mean that they are less in terms of their suitability.
All right, quite mixed views about that topic. But all of you agree that Parliament really has a role. I want us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be speaking about the NGCDF, the members of the National Assembly promising that they will, I don't know what to say, stop working, a ghost law, or what it is. They'll be clarifying for us, but also there is a bill to amend the Constitution to entrench some of those funds into the Constitution. We have that conversation after the break. Stay tuned.